So the other day I went to Cirque du Soleil, and if you ever get a chance to watch one of those shows, it is pretty extraordinary the way that they move, the artistry, the storytelling, like it's just so incredible and reminded me so much of gymnastics. In fact, I'm sitting there and I'm like, I used to be able to do that. I used to be able to do that. Maybe not anymore, but it was one of my favorite things to do growing up. I was never into like basketball or soccer, oh my gosh, rugby. I just, the moment I found gymnastics and it came from my parents being like, is she okay? Like, I would bend myself into the craziest like, spaces. I remember both my arms are double jointed. It's kind of crazy. And so, like, I can just, like, my back like would bend in half in ways, and my parents are like, I think something's wrong with her, we need to go get her checked out. I actually remember my dad once saying to me, like, we might go see if like things are okay with you. And then they took me to gymnastics in the end, and they're like, no, she's fine, she's fine. In fact, we actually, this isn't the right gymnastics, we're going to move her over to rhythmics. Very much, if you've ever seen them with like the ball and the ribbon, like that was my thing. And I just remember being like, this is it. It's funny how that quote by Albert Einstein, I think it's him, you know, you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, you'll spend a whole life thinking is stupid. And that's kind of how I felt. I remember just like never really, like, I just didn't enjoy anything else. But when I found gymnastics, it was like lived, breathe, like this is what I'm meant to do for the rest of my life. And, you know, circumstances didn't play out that way. And I loved it so much. I was very good at gymnastics. And, you know, when I was 12, I was 10th in New Zealand. I competed at the New Zealand Nationals, and then we ended up moving overseas, and I left my coach, I left my team, and I attempted it in Spain, but it was really difficult, and I was very bullied, and people were quite threatened with me as well, and I didn't understand any language at that stage, and it just wasn't meant to be for me. But I learned so much about it. And I remember in New Zealand, something I want to bring on today because I was thinking about this and I've never forgotten it, was something my coach taught me when I was very young. This is before I knew anything about manifestation, but she taught us a concept called mental imagery. And I remember so clearly this image of, it's the national championships, like we're at the finals and everyone else is practicing. We've already warmed up. We've done a little bit of practicing, but before our routine started, my coach would grab us and she would make us stand there with our eyes closed, and she would put on headphones, put on our music, and she's like, I want you to see yourself nailing every single jump, catching every single throw. And she would make us do this over and over and over again, especially before we went to go out. She would make us do it on the lead up, like every night. That was our homework, like, make sure you're doing this. And she was so certain about it. And, you know, we're like 10, 11, 12 at the time, quite young. But I remember this so much. You know, once I finished gymnastics, I kind of stopped it until I started to learn about manifestation. I start learning about these things, about, you know, what you think becomes real. And it's something that I've even done so now in my business, where before I go to sleep, I'll close my eyes and I'll envision certain things. It's like, one thing I really believe in is like, if we want a reality to exist, we have to see the reality before it's even manifested into the world. Whereas most people, they'll look at that current they'll look at their current reality and they'll respond to that as if as if it's the only truth available. Instead of, what I do is I will look at what I see and what I observe and what I experience in my current reality, and I'll understand it, I'll notice it, I'll be like, that's interesting, that's interesting, that's interesting. But I'm always responding to an internal reality. It's like that script that I see in my mind, and this time it's not a routine, it's a story of my life, it's the things that I dream of. And I think there's so many things that you can pull from this, and it's something to even try on. It's like, how often do you respond to your current reality? And let's use business as a really good example of, like, I remember when I made the decision, I'm going to go all in and I'm going to create $100,000 months. I just decided, I'm like, well, why not me? I saw so much evidence of it online, of why not me? Why can't I do that? And so I remember I was responding to that reality all the time. It didn't matter that I hadn't done it. It didn't matter that I wasn't even close to it yet. I think at the time I was maybe doing a few like $50,000 months, and I didn't do it logically. I wasn't like, okay, I need to get to from 50,000 to 60,000, from 60,000 to here. I was like, well, why not go for it? And I made that internal decision. And I remember just going all in and going, okay, like, well, I need to shift. I can't be responding how I used to because what my responses were was giving me that result. So instead of responding to the environment, I now need to respond to who I am, to the vision, to what I know is inside of me. And so as a result, my brand changed. As a result, who I was changed, how I led changed, the problems that I was entertaining changed, my offer creation, it changed, how I was moving changed. Like I responded to the internal reality as if it was the external reality until one day it became that external reality. And I think this is what's required sometimes, and however you want to do it, whether you call it manifestation, whether it's the mental imagery, it's like, what's the script and what's the story of yourself that you're responding to? What is that? And can you even see it? And some people, they can't see it, so it's like, write it out. What are you building? What do you know lives within you? And then are you responding to that reality? Or are you waiting for something external to happen before then you go build it to see that there's evidence? But the thing with evidence is evidence only comes after you've done it. So you never actually know whether you're doing the right thing or if you're on the way until it happens. So we can't ever wait for evidence that it's possible because you only get evidence once you've done it, once you've moved towards it. So say you've got a dream of like you want to get to $1 million, you can't wait to see that you can do it because until you've done it, you won't actually know what it takes. And so we've got to stop waiting for evidence. We've got to stop waiting for a feeling to come of like, okay, now's the right time. There's never a right time. What's the vision of your life? How often are you responding to the lack of it happening instead of the internal knowing that you know it's possible? And so starting to see this vision in your mind, what do you want? What do you desire? What do you know in your heart is possible? And starting to respond to that as if it is the reality because it is. And you building that evidence day by day, moment by moment, edge by edge, you lead yourself, you move yourself. This is how everything changes. But taking this imagery, it's like, what can you dream for your life and how do you move towards it? And what do you know is possible? And how can you start to edge yourself towards these realities? But just notice how often you're responding to an external reality. And maybe that's the reason why results keep showing up in the way they do, or why realities keep presenting themselves. It's like if you want something new, you're going to do something different. If you want a new reality, you've got to cast a whole new different set of actions that then responds to creating that new reality. So there's a whole lot of things in here for you to listen to. You might want to listen to this one again because I'm kind of speaking quite fast because I'm like, there's a lot of things that are inside right now, but it's like, what kind of shifts can you start to make that are going to shift the reality that you receive?